always think like, what can we learn from these
so
more
much.
advanced? Yeah, technology is cool. Like, yeah, I would be curious about their technology, but it's really not important.
Yeah.
Yes, how is this society? How are they thinking? How did they resolve the issues? Maybe they didn't encounter the same issues as we had too, because their society may have taken a very different direction. Who knows? But they've gone farther than we have, and to learn, like, I have the impression at that moment the whole of humanity will have whiplash, and it's kind of like do a double take, more accurate, and start realizing, okay, like there's a whole other world out there, like completely different, like and vast. I mean, you're talking about one civilization, but there are like probably dozens that are advanced just in our galaxy, and who knows how many exactly.
Yes.
And just like, wow, like how petty are we? Still thinking about these little things that we have here,
right?
And we're still like,
you got to accentuate the positive. I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. As always, a blessing to be with all of you again. And remember, I'm going to say it again, if you're liking the shows or if you're hating the shows or if you're watching for the first time, please subscribe and leave a comment. Just helps the algorithms gets the word out, that sort of thing. Okay. So, and send me an email and all that good stuff. And what else do I want to tell you? Join our Facebook page and I'll tell you all that stuff at the end of this. I have a fascinating man to introduce you to today. His name is, and I'm going to maybe butcher his name, but I'm going to try my best to say it with his accent, Sylvain Rochon. How did I do, Sylvain?
That's not terrible.
I'm really bad at a French accent, I tell you. Anyway, okay, let me tell you a little bit about Sylvain. He's in Canada. Ottawa. You're in Ottawa in Canada, right?
Correct, yes.
Sylvain Rochon is one of the leaders of the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, which is the Alliance for ETContact.org. A futurist, scientist and engineer, he's passionate about engineering a better world for all of humanity and beyond. Sylvain is also an international keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and author of Engineering Paradise. Are you ready? He is passionate about the evolution of human civilization towards designing a golden age, an age where we no longer need to work to survive and where everyone is free to seek their own destiny without fear. We can do this using our understanding of the universe and available technologies. Sylvain has a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, chemical engineering and education. He's also the co-founder of Psychometrics.
Correct.
What is Psychometrics?
It is an online psychometric company, as in the measurement of psyche, like personalities, cognition, things like that.
Oh, okay. And the VP of a network development at the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, director of the Canadian Institute of Mass Communication, and a delegate of the World Future Society, just to name a couple of things. So the website that you want to go, you've sent me a few websites here. You've got sylvainrochon.com and you've also got the alliance4et.org. You've got a few things going on. Welcome to the show, Sylvain.
Thank you, Karen. I'm very pleased to be here.
Lovely to meet you. Okay, so let's hear a little bit about you. Like, you're obviously an ET in human form, I reckon. You've come from our future. Have you heard of Have you heard of? Because you've got the vision of the future, right? You've been thinking about it since you're a kid, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's
Tell us about that.
yeah. When I was a child, this is a bit like an origin story for my superpowers. Marvel, I'm sure is going to pick it up. When I was a kid, I didn't know. Like you're a child, your whole environment. I was living in the countryside in Canada, like a French community. The closest village was 1,000 people. Actually, it was more like 700, and we lived like kilometers away from that. Right, so very isolated area, but beautiful, wonderful. So I didn't know any better, but somehow, somewhere, I got it into my brain that I had to save the world, like all kids do, apparently. Of course. And I had issues when growing up, because I mean, when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, you can't really do a whole lot, especially if you're out there in the boonies. So when I became a teenager, eventually, I started having like stress migraines, because I felt the pressure. I felt powerless, right? And then I was growing, and I was developing that identity, and I was still, in almost high school, but still like in the boonies somewhere. And I wanted to be a doctor, just like solve all these problems and doing all these things to cure the world of any and all ailments. Eventually, that calmed down. It's like, okay, like you can't be stressed about the rest of the world. Take it one piece at a time. But that's where I'm coming from. My mind has always been in that sense. So I did a whole bunch of studies at the university, and in sciences, technologies, and education. I ended up being an educator, and I still am. I consider myself a futurist, but also an educator, which is kind of put together, kind of works really well. But always thinking about how can we build that better future, right? Now, how can we engineer a better world? How can we heal cancer? I was thinking about all these things, and I still am. So that's why I'm involved with all sorts of organizations, because they all are aiming to resolve some kind of major problem. And the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact is no different. That's another passion of mine, because in my sense, we are part of the universe, not only the planet. Now, that's why I find a little annoying what's some of the messaging I see around on the planet, where we fight each other on color, on race, on whatever, right? Like it's very tribal. And my thought is, we are at the same level as the animals, the plants, extraterrestrial civilizations elsewhere. Like we're just all participants in the universe. It's like it's fighting amongst each other is like just so small thinking, and so just very emotional. So that's why when fairly early on, when I think I was like 13 years old, I started reading a lot about extraterrestrials and kind of understanding the unknown and the mysteries, like ghosts and UFOs and all that stuff. And I became, at some point, when I was 15, I became a Raelian, which is a philosophy that believes, from a contactee, that believes that this aliens came here and created life. So scientific design kind of principle. And that kind of blew my mind. It's like, okay, that makes sense to me. I'm being a scientist, that makes a lot more sense than the grandfather figure on the cloud or theory of evolution, which still has a lot of problems. We could talk about the theory of evolution and the details of it and the unresolved issues of that theory. But basically, I started thinking a lot more about connection with other civilizations because of that. Because then, like, okay, maybe we're being observed. But what if, on a personal level, what if the people that are observing us actually created us scientifically? Wouldn't that be neat? Right? Wouldn't that make a lot of sense and explain a whole bunch of stuff, including religions and all sorts of stuff? And then they want to meet with us, not only because they're curious about this strange humanity that's on the planet there, but because they actually have watched us grow as a civilization for so many years, and maybe we're on the cusp of being able to meet with them officially and have a conversation, with our father and son, or mother and daughter kind of a conversation. and that type of thinking appeals to me tremendously. So I know I'm mishmashing a lot of concepts here. I'm going back and forth, but in some way that kind of summarizes both how I think, but also who I am. Being kind of considering myself more of a member of the universe than a specific nation or a specific planet, and just desiring to participate in the wonders of the universe with humanity, and hopefully humanity growing out of its growth phase and its navel gazing and petty squabbles with each other, and moving on to something like the abstract you read, moving towards the golden age. So I guess that says most of it. I hope I answered your question.
Do you feel like you're being inspired by higher civilizations or extraterrestrial civilizations?
Yeah, I've often felt that. I have no idea if there's an actual tangible influence, but I certainly feel inspired. Yeah. The thought of, I'm a big science fiction fan, so you'll see what right away. I always think about Roddenberry's work, right? Like Star Trek and Earth Final Conflict. There's a bunch.
He went to see Edgar Cayce and different channels before he wrote the series, don't you?
I did not know that.
Yeah. And
but I did. Okay. I did have a little bit of time with his son.
Okay.
Rod. How unfortunate that name. Like, I don't know. I was.
What his name was Rod.
Why was his name Rod? But anyway, this is not a great guy. But yeah, Roddenberry was a visionary. But if you look at pretty much all of his shows, he humanizes the aliens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think all sci-fi does, they humanize the aliens, which really frustrates me, because when I'm watching futuristic sci-fi movies, I think, really, surely we're past all this emotional bullshit. We're no jealousy and all this stuff. I mean, 2,000 years in the future, or 1,000 years, or whatever, surely we've got past all that, but there's always this amazing tech, and everyone's fighting with each other and jealous and having affairs, and I'm doing the same old stuff on any other show, right? And I'm like, I think it's kind of
100% agree with you.
Yeah.
It annoys me. I mean, I'm entertained. Don't get me wrong.
It's entertaining. I do like the
but it's I think it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Think about, again, the Star Trek. You think about the Klingons, for example, right? An aggressive race, but they're spanning stars. I mean, they would have destroyed themselves way before they got anywhere, because of all the advanced technology they have access to.
Because of their temperament. So have you heard of Jacques Vallée?
I've heard the name, yes.
The Venus Project.
Yes, okay. Well, yeah. I work with the Venus Project as a volunteer.
Right, okay. Well, Jacques was so inspired by a futuristic, race of beings. And yet, when he was interviewed, because he's since left his body, when you asked him about consciousness or spirituality, he was like, nah, that's all bullshit. Or ET's like, he was just, because he was so science sort of focused. And I think to myself, I was telling my tribe the other day, they were asking about my contact with my guides. But before I knew I had contact with guides, I thought it was all me, right? I thought it was my questions being asked, me working it out, my common sense. I never attributed any of the inspirational thoughts that I was having to a higher consciousness beyond my human mind. So that's why I ask you, do you think you're being chatted to or inspired by higher consciousness? Once you do wake up to that fact, they introduce themselves to you and they go, hi, it's about time. It's not all you doing the thinking. Yeah.
I haven't had that level of experience, that contact.
Yet.
I've always thought, I'm open to it. Telepathy, there's truth that,
right.
And other forms of communications that we're not completely aware of, or that
Right.
we may not be completely capable to contact, except for some people, or because of training and things like that.
Right.
You know, I spoke with a lot of people that are contactees, like alien contactees, recently because of the alliance,
Yeah.
and many of them are engineers. They're very rational kind of
Right.
training.
Mhm.
And what I noticed recently with one of them is that they had this spiritual experience with contacting, like having like a fifth kind contact,
Like an
basically.
out of body experience or telepathic communication, or even
Oh, direct contact with an alien.
or you seeing like
Yeah,
having a
this-
physical experience. Yeah.
but it wasn't like face to face, like body to body. It was something like there was some weirdness going on about them. They couldn't really explain. They were a group. I don't want to tell the story because it's his experience, but just to make the point. And being an engineer, was trying to figure it out, to understand how this was happening, what was it going on, because
Yeah.
but he couldn't. And so I kind of told him the same thing I told many other people. There may be some ways to communicate through telepathy or other means that feels mystical. That's one thing, but also an advanced civilization, like it's just 50 years ahead of us. Like, you just give them 50 years more advanced than us, and they activate some communication technology. We may not be able to distinguish that from magic. And so we perceive things and we think, oh, this is mystical, but it could be technological, but we can't make the difference. It could be either way. We don't know.
Yeah.
So the point is, like, I think we have to just keep an open mind about all that stuff and be receptive, and kind of accept the universe still being full of mystery.
Yeah.
And be connected and listen, right?
Well, the way you describe future Earth, like what you want to see, is the way future Earth is. So I've been, showcasing New World teachers for over 20 years, and on the show for about 12 years, and spoken to many incredible people. And I speak about him all the time. It's like, oh, she's talking about Garnet again. But Garnet, who was a Canadian corporate lawyer, I'll put you in contact with him, was awakened by his spirit guide about 10 years ago, who appeared as a homeless man in the street, and has since, over the last 10 years, taken him to fly around the cosmos and shown him many realities, including future Earth and other planets that live in other dimensions, humanoid planets, which fascinates me. How does their society run? What's their governance? What do they eat? What is their transport system? And what you're describing is what he's experienced. So that already exists as a reality. Yeah. In some other dimension, other world, other timeline, other place in time. Yeah. So
other dimensions, perhaps.
dimension.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So
How do we describe these things?
Let's hear about it. Let's hear about your vision of the Alliance for Diplomatic Contact.
Okay, well, this is a fairly specific engagement, actually, project, right? The Alliance is a collection of organizations, of which I'd love to have you in the as inside the Alliance. By the way, we'll talk about that a bit later. But it's organizations that want the same thing we do, which is having official contact with an extraterrestrial civilization, or 2 or 3, but one will do, right? And so within that alliance, there's multiple different group organizations that have different approaches to that, the more grassroots, like a CE5 type organizations. We have some people that are doing that, like direct contact, right? The International Rallying Movement is one of the founding members, and they want to build an embassy, which is what you see behind you. The funds are raised, and then there's this machination and discussion going on with the United Nations, as well as multiple countries, where you need to set aside a piece of land, extraterritoriality, so that it's formal and a location recognized internationally as an embassy for extraterrestrials, not for any one nation, right? So that's a certain project for one of our members, and we are accepting other members that have similar desires, but they may have other plans, other goals similar in parallel, and we support each other under the alliance, and we all kind of join together to develop this future world in a sense where we bridge that fantastic gap from being, this only ourselves on this one planet, to being part of a collective of a collection of our civilizations beyond our planet, and into the galaxy, and changing that mentality from what we have now to more like the Star Trek's Federation kind of ideology, where everybody's welcome, everybody's together, we work together, we're everywhere on different planets, but then we learn from each other, all that stuff. So that's the purpose. Basically, it's leading to that transition, and putting out the welcome mat for an ET civilization that's looking at us, undoubtedly waiting for us to wise up and be ready for them. I'm convinced, along with all the members of the alliance, that we're being watched. It's not like, I mean, if you just look at the engineering technology, they're not flying around themselves and trying to avoid our aircraft. They're doing that to show off, to show that we exist, and kind of like put inklings into our brain that allowing us to cause discussion and to kind of get a sense of it without having too much fear. They don't need to be there. Like we have satellites in orbit to watch, like every nation, and provide satellites, and we don't see those satellites, right? So why would a civilization that's 50, 100, 1,000 years ahead of us in technology need to actually be in our atmosphere and say and wave hello? They don't need to do that. They're doing it on purpose. Same with possibly a lot of crop circles and a whole bunch of other stuff. This is just to prepare us for when we're ready to say, okay, now we're ready to welcome you. Like, come down, have a chat. We're fine. We won't panic, right? So the embassy is really not for them, because they can land or project and do anything from anywhere. They don't need to land in a specific location. The embassy project is really for us. If we're able to do that with the United Nations and kind of with the red tick that's associated with it, and the fear of politicians being associated with something a bit weird like that, if we get through those hurdles and we get it done formally and it's internationally known, then the Earth is probably ready for that meeting. And that's really the purpose of the embassy project itself.
What if that already exists, but it's not available to the mainstream mind? If there's a covert operation that has a diplomatic embassy and speaks with different races of extraterrestrials, and it's all already happening in the secret space program.
I don't know. I mean, of course, I've heard the stories.
Yeah.
Right? But because it's a secret thing,
yeah,
I don't really know about it because it's a secret. I can't say it's impossible. I don't know. There may have been some contacts here and there of all kinds. Maybe the idea of this project is that it's open; it's not secret anymore.
Right. Exactly. That's the difference. That it's open and available for anyone to come and learn and talk about stuff. And it's not a secret anymore, and it's not considered crazy or woo-woo or all that sort of social conditioning that we've been under for many years. So there's been many stories of ETs coming to Earth, both in human form or projecting a human form. Some use holographic technology, some create physical bodies, not necessarily birthed. And God, I've heard so many stories who have been knocking themselves out for like 70, 80, maybe 100 years, trying to get humanity ready to rejoin the Galactic Federation of Worlds. And for the most part, because of the way we operate here on planet Earth, there's been a resounding by our governments, no, we don't want you here, we don't want your help, we don't want your technology, it'll wreck our economy, it'll change our world, we're happy the way we are, polluting the world and making money. So that's got to change, right, Sylvain?
I certainly hope so. All my messaging as a futurist now, if I can change hats a little bit, is to create this better world of humanity, whether aliens are involved or not. Okay,
Right.
that's the most important thing is not the evolution of our technology.
Right.
The most important step is the evolution of our consciousness. Right.
Yeah.
The mindset is a different word, maybe a little bit more practical,
Right.
like changing how we see the universe and how we see each other, how we see the world.
Right.
Once we're able to make that leap of mindset as a society, I'm not talking about the leaders, but just you and I and others. Well, you and I, we've been there for years, but others that are not just yet, not there yet. That's when any possible secret hidden things, I mean, they're not secret anymore all of a sudden, because then the people are accepting. And I gave this speech many times, Karen. Strictly speaking, as a technologist and futurist, our consumerist economy is going to collapse within the next 15 years, probably more like 10.
Oh, I'm thinking the next 5 years, actually. I'm thinking it's collapsing right in front of our eyes.
Oh yeah, it's not a one day or the other. There's a transition. We are inside it already.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and it's all because of automation and AI, and our own behavior in consumerism and competition is actually driving it at a faster speed. But I see that, yes, in a way it's a crisis, because then what is the world going to be like if we don't have money and we don't need to dominate each other?
Be fantastic. I can't wait.
But it's an opportunity to build exactly that, like that new world where it's not like that, where people don't need to work for a living anymore.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of resources for everybody.
Yeah.
And we have robots and AI designed to take pleasure in serving us. And that's really important.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want to go into robots
debate.
and AI and their emotions, but it's basically creating a symbiosis with new consciousness that we would create that frees us all to do whatever we want and to enjoy life.
Just to stay on the AI conversation, I'm looking at your Facebook page this morning. Mm-hmm. And the last post you have is Elon Musk saying, I tried to warn them. Elon Musk on super AI. So I'm thinking, right, as much as you're fascinated by AI and you're all for it, there is also some danger there, which Elon Musk has been talking about. So where are you standing on? Because I've spoken to, I spoke to a couple a year or so ago who was so against the AI. They're like, get rid of your iPhone, get rid of your computer, get rid of all of it. I'm like, oh, okay. And they were channeling some Palladians, or they were channeling some extraterrestrial race that said that going down the AI route was the end of their civilization. It was like a destructive route. It was just not. So they were warning, like, get rid of everything. Anyway, I thought that was a little bit extreme. So where do you stand on this?
I'm encouraged, but there are some dangers to it, some pretty serious ones. I don't agree with Musk, even though I do share his ideas. And that one was actually, I was surprised by that particular Elon Musk, at least what was an article or a video, I forget what it was. But that's why I reposted. It's like, okay, that comment of his, I'm 80% on board with it. Hawking's was, Stephen Hawking's was entirely against the evolution of AI moving into a super intelligence. He can't really speak for himself now because he's deceased, but he had pretty strong comments. My position is more favorable, but we need, similar to what Musk was saying, it's like what's lacking is that we need to there's some regulation, some rules. Because what we're really doing with AI, people don't really think this way, except people in my field. right now we're dealing with really, really dumb AI. They're absolutely not dangerous. Okay, the current AI, what we call narrow AI. Each AI is able to do something very specific extremely well, but nothing else. Okay, that's the current state of things now. But AI is getting interconnected in networks so that you have lots of AIs that are able to do a lot of different things. And then as a collective, they're able to achieve way more than a person could. So within the next, I'm still saying the next 15 years or so, we'll have the emergence of AGI, so general intelligence. So AI as a network would have at least human level intelligence. And that's okay. Again, I'm okay with that. I'm even okay with super intelligence, which is like way beyond that, but not that many years, just way more intelligent. As long as they are programmed correctly so that they don't see us or view us as a threat or a nuisance or anything like that. Because then you get into scenarios of Skynet and Terminator and iRobot and these sci-fi scenarios that do state, humanity is super dumb, and the AI declares humanity as a parasite or as something. That's where the regulation and designing AI really becomes important. You have China and the US, for example, that have developed deep learning AI for weaponry, right? So you can send an AI tank out, independent thinking, and choose its own target and defend itself and do all that stuff. That's a terrible idea. Because the way AI are programmed, like the learning AIs, they learn according to parameters, and then they can adjust their parameters. And if their motivation is kill, but it can change targets and it can decide to kill other things. It's all a question of what makes AI motivated, because that's how we create AI that are deep learning. On the other side of the fence, on the practical side, you have the AI that are driving self-driving cars, right? That's very positive. That's completely not a problem. Those AI are motivated and keep people safe. It's a little bit like designing a person. Like imagine you can design a person, okay? It's a blank slate. It has no emotions at all. It's completely blank. It's just a body, right? And it's like, okay, what kind of emotion or what kind of reaction do I want to program and when? That's what we're doing with AI. It's like, okay, what are the emotions? Well, the self-driving car is an example of that. What do we want the car to do? Well, we want it to feel pleasure, essentially, gaining plus points, if it doesn't hit anything. Okay? So it's like if you design a person, say, okay, you're going to feel pleasure if you don't hit anybody. Well, what is that person going to do if it has only that emotion? It's going to avoid at all costs hitting anything, because that's going to give that person a feeling of pleasure. You see that I'm creating an intentional analogy.
Okay. I just got to interject.
So we need to design AI correctly with the right motivations that are positive, interacting with us, and we'll be fine.
You wouldn't design a car that feels pleasure. You would just give it instructions not to hit anything. Why? What's the pleasure thing?
Well, okay. I understand I'm intentionally using these words because we're moving in that direction. The traditional algorithms and software that we used to call intelligent were instructions. Right. That's what we used to do. But when we are designing a self-driving car or anything else that has to take decisions on the fly, we cannot just give them lines of specific instructions because we don't know what it's going to encounter. It needs to be able to adapt on its own. Mm-hmm. And the only way we figured out how to do that is by training it with motivations. Like, okay, don't hit anything. Then that means it needs to recognize what a thing is, mm-hmm. and how to maneuver. And so it's trained, essentially. And that's the real term. They train sort of simulations. And it bumps into things that's like, oh, that's a bummer. Like it's a negative point, let's say, for that AI. Next run, it will avoid doing that. If it goes to the destination mm-hmm. within a reasonable amount of time, it has positive points. And the game, essentially, in the training is the car wants to maximize its points. its emotions because it's motivated that way. And then when it encounters something that has never seen before, it learns from the billion times they've encountered different things. And it's like, okay, what did I do in the past? And most times I got the most points. It's going to try to avoid it. It's going to swerve, stop, do something. And it behaves. So it's a little bit like a baby learning how to be a baby.
Yeah.
It touches hot things and then it learns, okay, this feels bad, that feels good.
Yeah,
and
that wasn't good.
Starts behaving a certain way that maximizes minimizes discomfort, maximizes. That's why I try to humanize the AI to kind of give an understanding, because we're actually programming them to have alternate emotions, not to be human, but to have emotions that are different that will drive their behavior correctly.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You said it. You said the evolution is not an evolution in technology, it's an evolution in consciousness.
Right.
But you can't program consciousness into technology, or can you? I mean, the thing about consciousness is that it's connected to how we think and feel. I mean, you can program something to think, but can you program something to feel? So there's a lot of, I don't know, sticky.
And the answer is yes, we can. We are doing it.
You can program something to feel. Okay.
Yeah. Well, look at ourselves. Okay. When something is pleasurable to us, whatever it is, right? That's a positive reinforcement. That's a feeling. We call it feeling. And when you have something uncomfortable, then that's a bad feeling. It's a feeling we have. We're aware of our environment. We sense things and we feel things like that, and that drives our behavior. AI are designed exactly the same way. It's just they don't, like, we can't put ourselves in that body and say, well, they feel sad. No, they don't feel sadness. That's our feeling. They feel something completely different that was programmed into them, but their behavior is driven the same way as ours.
Okay, so I think that what I'm talking about more than feeling sad or happy is empathy. So the evolution in consciousness is really an evolution in empathy. So, they talk about the indigo revolution and the star children coming in, and this psychic ability, this ability to know what the other thinks and feels. So you could call that telepathy, but as an empathic child, before I understood I was psychic, I didn't know I was psychic. I could feel everybody. Someone would talk to me and they would say something and I'd be looking at them. That's not how you feel about this. That's not how you think. You're lying to me. Like, I could feel it was very confusing. So you can't program that into a machine to have that empathic.
Yeah, you can.
No, maybe you can. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
It has a lot of senses, and it can sense and infer if it's programmed to do it. We've had robots that do that, but it's not the equivalent of a human being. It's programmed differently. It's not interesting at all. 0% interest, except for curiosity's sake, to try to design something that will replace a human being. We have 7.8 billion examples of human beings. So why would we create another one?
Right.
There's plenty of them. So it's curiosity. Just to answer the question, can we do it? Okay, I get it. We'll probably do that just because we want to say we did it, but there's no usefulness to it. In the golden age that I see in the future, so I see organic and mechanical creations of ours that will be conscious, that will have interactions with us, but they would be entirely created with different levels of complexity, just like, the snail versus the dog versus, different levels of complexity and interaction. And they may feel very real to us. And we can give them empathy or other feelings or extra feelings that we don't have, and so on. The key is for us to have the right openness to be accepting of these this new society where we can do this, and have a kind of a symbiotic and collaborative a relationship with other civilizations, with planet Earth, like in general, with those new conscious beings, mechanical or biological and otherwise, right, that we bring into the world and interact with each other. And think about, what does a human being, what is a human being really designed to do? If you think about, like, if you're the mechanic, what is a human being really good at? That is a question for
Sorry,
you.
what's a human being really good at? I don't know. That's
like if you generalize, of course, each individual is good at different things.
I'm having a conversation with my mob about what I just said.
Okay.
and they're talking to me about what I just said about programming empathy, and so I'll get back to that question. What's a human being really good at? But I just want to tell you what they're showing me. So the spaceships or the vehicles of the future are conscious beings. They are conscious beings. They are biological machines, if you like, because they do a mechanical action, but they're actually conscious and alive. And what they're showing me is that there is absolute empathic and telepathic communication between you and your ship. In fact, that's how you drive the ship, through thought and feeling. So you program where you want to go by thinking about it, and then you turn up the frequency to that location, and your ship does the same thing, and you're there. So they're actually just answering my question. You see, I'm thinking of machines like nuts and bolts, and they're showing me their machines are actually more like flesh, but they're also machines. So it's really interesting. So that's
fascinating.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that talk about that, that talk about craft that are conscious craft. People that have, talk about the secret space program and all that sort of thing. But what are human beings really good at?
Yeah, fundamentally, like if you
eating,
think about.
I don't know. What are human beings really good at? That's a good question. What a great question. I have no idea. What do you think human beings are really good at?
Well, again, we have to think about everybody, like fundamentals.
Yeah, I'm trying
everybody's
to
good
across
at different
the
things.
board.
Yeah, human beings are great at feeling.
Well, not everyone.
No. But we are. Our whole body is designed.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. We have a very large emotional component to this human experience.
And the tactile, the visuals. We don't have full range of most of our senses, but they combine really well together, more so than most animals. Most animals are like the dog, for example. It's nowadays like absolutely fantastic, but it's lacking in feeling and touching and other senses. We are kind of broad. We're not great workers. Like, we're not designed to do physical labor over long periods of time. We can certainly do it. Question: we've been doing it for a long time, but out of need. But we're in our engineer, or how we're designed, really, like when we're relaxed. Let's take another angle. When we're relaxed and we're on a holiday, or we have time to just do something that we like, we do something that is essentially sensual. So listening to music, using our senses, art, just going into the pool, taking a walk. These are all sensual activities that we enjoy when we don't have obligations. Interacting with family, children. I don't have any children, but I hear that's great. But we're drawn to those activities because we get a lot out of it, in a very fundamental and general sense. So if we think ahead into the perfect future for ourselves of freedom, is that we'd be free to feel as we want and do activities that we'll enjoy. But we still have to eat and sleep and doing these basic things, which is why you have all the productivity that we've been actually working for. It was actually to build and to have the food on the table and doing things. But what if we essentially build a mini civilization of AI, organic or mechanical, that actually are designed to enjoy being productive and taking care of all that stuff? And that's kind of where my mind goes. And you talk about those machines, those vehicles that are empathetic, and they're of course they don't feel pleasure the same way because they're built differently, but they're motivated positively to doing certain tasks that they were designed to do, while we're designed to feel and to interact with the world in a different way.
So your vision of the future is so what is your vision? Like give us your overview. What are people doing? What does it look like? Let's
Yeah,
hear
that's where I
your
was.
vision.
I think that would be good. Yeah. Okay, and this is doable. It'll take at least 12, 20 years, but it's actually achievable to get that first start of this, what I'm going to explain to you. You wake up in the morning, okay? You're in your home, beautiful home, lots of good air, and you wake up, you're not worried about work because you're not working anymore. Okay, there's nobody's actually working unless they decide to create an occupation out of fun or obligation or some kind of activity, which is part of freedom. You want to do what you want to do, right? You wake up, have a nice breakfast. Where does the food come from? Well, it's on demand. It's actually grown inside the city, vertical farms or other technologies that brings it really close. On demand, a drone or robot or whatever brings the food to your home fresh directly from the garden, and you can cook, or it can come cooked, and you eat, you enjoy time with your family. Then you have the rest of the morning free to do whatever you want because there's no work, and you know that at noon there's going to be more food. It's being produced by somebody else, by basically robots, if you simplify things, right, and AI. And you enjoy your morning, do some painting, maybe taking a swim, spending time with the kids or friends, whatever. And then you have lunch, kind of same thing. You can eat essentially anything you want. And all the waste is actually recycled as materials that goes back to the farms or recycled into your very sophisticated 3D printing machines at home, where you can just basically recycle a whole bunch of stuff directly at the home without going to any centralized location. So environmentally, all you need is really energy. Where does the energy come from? Well, it could be some kind of nuclear technology at the home, like it could be fusion, but it could be entirely solar without a problem. Like it's enough with just your roof to have enough energy to do anything you need at home. It can be very simple energy collection. The purified water that you have is extracted from the air without using any energy at all. This is technology we have today, by the way. Okay, and you extract that, and you can drink fresh water. It's no pollutant, no nothing, and no chemicals whatsoever. It's just pulled directly from the air. The molecules themselves are pulled from the air. No pollutants are included. So anything that is waste actually goes out because you're not working, and your mindset, of course, is changed to a more futuristic mindset. You're not trying to impress the neighbors by just buying stuff and having stuff and collecting stuff. And even if you do, you can recycle and demolecularize that stuff, and it gets recycled into other stuff. The only thing that's required is solar energy or other forms of energy to recycle that energy. So you're not worried about the environment or anything falling from the sky or anything serious happening. In the afternoon, maybe you want to go out, have some activity. Maybe you want to go to a restaurant in the evening. And the restaurant, there's an actual chef there, a human chef, because he wants to be there. He enjoys it. And he cooks for the people. He has no pressure. The next day, he doesn't need to work if he doesn't want to, because there's always a robot and AI and this group of collection of intelligences and consciousness that can be better cooked than him. But he wants to be there, and it gives that couple of these individuals in the restaurant that evening a special, unique flavor that is only that cook, right? Because that's a unique person, and he or she cooks for these people out of pleasure for himself, and the people enjoy that, and they have interaction with each other. And then the evening goes on. The people, you may go out and maybe do something fun for others. And then you can go back home, enjoy some shows. A lot of the shows by then are created singularly for you. Like you think about today, you have all these shows that are created by YouTubers, by individuals. By then, we already have AI currently that's able to create trailers and movie trailers and shows. By then, you'll have millions of shows they can pick off that are created by people or by AI. You can choose whatever entertainment you like, and it's free because there's a billion of them. So it commoditizes every piece of entertainment you may imagine. And you go from day to day, just choosing what you want to do, whether it's you're serving others or you're just enjoying and consuming and recycling. You're just enjoying yourself. And those like me who are engineers will probably continue building because I enjoy building things. Even though the AI and robots can do it better than I like it. So I'm going to do it anyway and have fun doing that. The burden of society is no longer on the engineer. The AI will actually take that burden out of their own programming, and I get to do it for fun, not because I'm obligated socially to do it. So that's the vision of the future, the potential future.
So what challenges people? What drives people?
Well, people have their own goals. If we look at statistics, I think it's 70 or 80% of people don't like their job because they're put in there, they don't want to do it, and they certainly don't want to do it 40 hours a week or whatever. They want, many, according to statistics, would enjoy their job if they get to choose how much time, when, and how they get to do it. Because there's a feeling of purpose in society in actually doing something for others. In fact, there are two researchers out of Harvard. I cite them in my book. In fact, so I forget their names now, but that was 2017. They did some research on what provides joy, and it was very specific because they were measuring levels of joy in activities, but only when there's an absence of chronic stress. So when there's no survivalist threat, or am I worried about the next day's meal, things like that, where people are calm and comfortable, so no chronic stress. And what was discovered is that human beings, like 95% of human beings of the group they were sampling, the biggest joy was giving to others.
Right.
And we know this.
Okay, so a lot of people get. So here's the thing about our world. I've thought about this a lot, Silva. Without the sick people, there's no use for healers. So the sick people need the healer as much as the healer needs the sick people. And the healer is in service and enjoys being in service, however they're healing, whether they're a doctor or, or an energy healer or doing Reiki or a psychic or whatever, a teacher.
Yeah.
Without the hungry, there wouldn't be any need for, people need to be hungry children. Without the poor or the impoverished, the people can't serve in charities and go out and help people. And, there's a lot of people who get a lot out of being in service to the problems of our world. So if there are no problems in our world, what are those healers and people that have come to be in service to humanity doing? And I'm asking you for your vision. I've got my ideas. Yes. What do you think they're doing?
That's a brilliant question, because it illustrates a bit where we're headed, at least the ideal. There's no such thing as a perfect society. There's always going to be problems. People develop imbalances chemically or otherwise, mentally, and they need help. Like you said, like mental health, that's still going to be a thing. There's going to be a lot less of it if there's no chronic stress, but it's still going to be some of that. There's still going to be violence. There's still going to be just less of it because of the absence of chronic stress, or at least the perceived. People can still develop their own chronic stress even though there's no tangible stress around them. We're imperfect creatures, right? The big difference is the removal of the absolute need to participate and create productivity for X amount of hours, or otherwise you're kind of outside of society, or you're shunned, or you're homeless, or these bad things. That's what we really want to remove. I mentioned earlier that a lot of people enjoy their work, but they don't want to do 40 hours a week constantly in there because they feel forced to do it. And that's the absence of freedom that really hurts. It's not the actual activity. Like a doctor, a true healer, somebody that enjoys healing. Like I'm an engineer, I enjoy building things. Sometimes, some days, and I have to admit, like most days I'm building something. I'm just passionate about it. I do it in my games. I do it with my businesses. I'm an engineer. I build. I enjoy that. But some days I don't want to. But then if I work for a company or I have a company with obligations, the days that I don't want to, I still have to do it. Because this system that we're in, it forces me to do that. And because if I don't do that, if I don't work on those days that I don't want to, then I lose privileges. And sometimes I can lose my job because I can just say, like, I don't feel like it and not go to work, right? If you're a worker. You can't just do that. So I'm forced to do it even though I don't want to. That's the piece that we're removing. We're not removing like, okay, now nobody works at all. Nobody doesn't, like, just you're on the beach all day, like 24/7, 365 days a week. Don't touch anything. Otherwise, no, like the world I'm seeing is total freedom. That means you do what you want to do. So those people that are healers that want to heal, they go out and heal, but they get to dictate their times and hours and when they want to do it. They based on what they feel and their feelings and their emotions. So some may be working 6 hours a week anyway, and they're happy to do it because they do it not because they're obligated to do it. They do it because they want to. And some may be healing 10 hours a week sporadically because that's the rhythm they're in, and that's where they gain their pleasure, and they're doing other things in other points in time. So definitely the idea is not to remove some of those activities from us. It's to empower us to do what we feel we want to do in our own time, our own pace, because the system, right, has no need for us to actually be in there. Otherwise, other people will starve or like things will collapse. The AI has that, covered. All the productivity, the food, like we're good. If we stop doing what, like for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, the world doesn't stop. It still rolls without us, but we get to achieve it ourselves. And the reference is the Federation, Roddenberry's Federation idea, right? There's no money there either. Nobody needs to work either. Yet you see in those shows, again, I know it's fiction, but you see in those shows that people putting themselves in danger because they want to. They feel compelled to explore, to adventure, to open restaurants, whatever. They don't do it because they have to. They do it because it's a passion. They want to. And that's kind of the more interesting, fallible model that we're looking for. Removing fundamentally, and really the base root of it all is to remove chronic stress from our lives.
Yeah. Well, one could argue that chronic stress happens because of how you're programmed, and then it's an inside job. It's not what's happening in the world, it's how you're responding to it. So you can be in really dreadful circumstances and not be stressed at all. or you could be I remember doing an Abraham cruise in 2004 or 5 anyway, and we were on this beautiful luxury boat, and we had opted for the cheaper rooms which didn't have a portal, right? A porthole. And I remember going into...
I wish you had a portal.
A portal, I know.
Portal to another universe.
Being in this tiny room and freaking out that I couldn't look outside and having a bit of a claustrophobic moment and thinking, I was totally stressing. I can't sleep in this room. I need to be able to look outside. And then the first session that we had with Esther and the teachings of Abraham, they said, so how are you finding the boat? Everything is there for you. You don't have to cook. You don't have to work. Everything is provided for you, and it's all included in the price. You don't even have to pay for anything. And still you've found something to stress and worry about, haven't you? I remember sitting there going, damn, she's right.
Imagine that.
We can be in the most luxurious of circumstances where all our needs are met and we're completely stressed out. So stress is an inside job. And anyway, how I got over it was, my thinking was, you're asleep while you're in the room. You don't need to look out the window.
You can just leave the room, go to the deck.
Room. Yes, exactly. Get over it, Karen.
See more ocean.
Exactly. You could be out on the deck and you've got infinity in front of you. You've got that expanse. You don't have that claustrophobic thing. Exactly. And where did I want to go? There was another thing I wanted to make. Oh, yeah, I wanted to tell you about this. So someone I had on the show recently, fabulous director and futurist and amazing, Craig Campobasso, has written quite a few books. And he was telling me about a woman who lived in South Africa. She died in the late 90s, in the early 90s, in her 80s. And she was in contact with a Venusian civilization, a man from Venus, but Venus, they had moved to Alpha Centauri and they inhabited about 7 planets in the Alpha Centauri system. And he came from a planet called Meton, and his name was Archon. Anyway, so she went to Meton with Archon and looked at their society, and their society was this utopian society where everyone was highly evolved consciously. It was like much more evolved in a 5th dimension, and they lived like you're talking about. They lived in complete harmony with nature, in beauty, in loving communication and loving relationships with everyone. They just had this utopian, beautiful society. And the question was posed, I don't know, because I posed the question, but it was answered in the book. What challenges them? And so because there were no challenges in their society, they were reaching out into the cosmos, into the universe, to be of service to systems, planetary systems and civilizations that needed their help. And the challenge for them was to provide that help and have that help be received. And I was thinking, yeah, right, like humans that say there's no such thing as ETs, they're sort of reaching out telepathically to us to help us with the evolution of our consciousness and technology. And we're going, there's no such thing as extraterrestrials. So that was their challenge, to be of help and service to a civilization that would deny their help or deny their existence. And I thought that was really fascinating. Yeah.
I think about that a lot. On the moment, like in the future, where let's say we build the embassy, which means civilization is ready. That's what it really means. And then we have first contact. Right? I dream about that often because that's a super cool idea, right? Like official, not hidden, just here you go, and perhaps like big faces in the skies like this, everybody can see, like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, you can imagine all sorts of scenarios.
Yeah.
And then I always think, like, what can we learn from these more advanced? Yeah, technology is cool. Like, yeah, I would be curious about their technology, but it's really not important.
Yeah.
It's like, how is this society? How are they thinking? How did they resolve the issues? Maybe they didn't encounter the same issues as we had too, because their society may have taken a very different direction. Who knows? But they've gone farther than we have, and to learn. Like, I have the impression at that moment, the whole of humanity will have whiplash, and it's kind of like do a double take, more accurate, and start realizing, okay, like there's a whole other world out there, like completely different, like and vast. I mean, you're talking about one civilization, but there are like probably dozens that are advanced just in our galaxy, and who knows how many exactly.
Yes,
and just like, wow, like how petty are we? Still thinking about these little things that we have here,
right?
And we're still like maybe like we're heavily overpopulated. Everybody knows it. We understand that concept.
Well, right? I disagree. I don't think we are overpopulated.
But yeah, there's no way to control population. We don't even talk about it.
Well, why do you think we're overpopulated? Do you think that there are finite resources that we're using up, and so thus we're overpopulated?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. It depends on how you look at it. Like if you look at planet Earth's regenerative ability, we and this is based on somebody else's calculation, not on mine, but we shouldn't be more than 2-3 billion.
What do you say?
While everybody consumes like the West, because right now, like there's like a lot of places in Africa, Southeast Asia, they don't have a very good diet. They don't. If they would consume like us, like I mean, not just for food, that would place a bigger burden on the planet. But and this. I mean, we are, in my view, overpopulated. We can have this population and still have balance, but we have to use technology to do it.
Well, I think that we can have triple this population and still have balance. It's just the way that we structure our society and the way we produce and the way we produce food. And, you know, eating meat the way we eat meat at the moment, there is meat that you can actually create in the lab from cells and create steaks and that are actually steaks, or you can
cultured meats.
Cultured meat, or you can create meat from plant-based product that is 15 times, 100 times healthier than meat from animals. So we can still eat meat, so to speak, but with the way we're producing meat by, you know, cutting down trees to grow soy and feed, and then cutting down trees to put the cows on there and using all that, you know, it's just the way we're doing things. But if we did things differently, sustainably, there could be 300 billion people living on Earth. I don't think we're overpopulated.
I don't know if that's going to be the number, but
we're overpopulated because of the way we do life.
That's why I said, like, if we use our knowledge and technology correctly,
right?
And we, like you said, cultured meats. Super fan of that, and also vertical farming, for example, like all sorts of technologies that we can use. The way we live also, like spread out, we can concentrate a bit more or less depending on models. We can certainly have a sustainable planet with whatever, but we're depending on that technology to maintain that. We can't just let things go.
You know, Sylvain, in Australia, we are this massive landmass, and we're like 26 million people. We're probably a bit more, but that's the statistics at the moment, just under 26 million people. But America is like, what, 350 million?
325-ish, 330, I think. It's actually over 330.
A lot more, right?
Yeah, a lot more.
On a landmass that's a similar size to Australia. But the thing that astounded me when I was flying over the States and looking down, I just saw so much natural beauty and so much land and so much space in such a populated. And I thought, wow, you know, you could fit a lot more people down there. And you can certainly fit a lot more people in Australia. And I've been given a vision by an Aboriginal elder, actually, in spirit, who came to show me that when humanity raises their consciousness, that they said that they're the custodians of Uluru, which is like a very important part of Mother Gaia, of planet Earth, and that they purposely made the Australia barren for a lot of it. There's incredible lush rainforests. It's not, but the greater majority of it, like the inside of it, the center, the red center, they call it, so that it wasn't inhabitable for human life, because they didn't want a population on this part of the earth until we had raised our consciousness and we lived more unified and sustainably. And he said that when that happens, that Australia will regenerate. There is actually this massive sea underneath Australia called the Artesian Basin, which could irrigate the red centre and turn it into a, lush rainforest. So yeah, all things are possible. But I think there's plenty of room on planet Earth. I don't think we're overpopulated. It's just we've got to do things really differently. But the people that do think we're overpopulated and might want to cull a couple of billion, that could be happening right now, right? They want to keep things the way they want to keep the petrol industry, the petrodollar. They want to keep things the way they're doing it. Let's just kill a few million people, a few billion, and keep going so that there's more resources. But
maintain power. Yeah.
But there are anti-gravitic technology for propulsion and free energy technology that is using magnetics that's generating energy from just the atmosphere. You don't need any sort of fuel. All that's available and has been for 50, 70 years. It's all available now. And imagine if every home had its own little sort of free energy device that powered it completely. There was you were off the grid. Didn't matter if there was a power outage. uses the energy from the atmosphere and uses magnets to create energy. It's all possible, right? It's all there.
There's a lot of possibilities, and I keep to open technologies that are there, because I don't need to go into some of those more esoteric types of technologies that are not in the market, that are not visible like in the market. I did comparisons in my book when I wrote it, just using solar, just plain solar, just that. There's a lot of other things, but well, solar is really, if we use proper material, is a very clean tech to generate electricity. And I did the math, and if we had solar panels enough to cover Texas, okay, like that kind of that coverage area, there's more than enough energy for anything we'd need on the whole of planet Earth.
Well, Elon Musk said that about Australia. He said that you could create this like little city of solar panels, and you could actually power the whole planet from just, taking a little bit of desert and putting the planet, and because it's, there's a lot of sun in Australia. But I've heard that, the technology of building the solar panels is very pollutive because of the chemistry, the chemicals they use to actually build a solar panel. So it seems like a clean solution, but when you kind of dive into it, it's not so much.
Well, it did. Well, we can go into the tech, but it depends on what solar panels. There is a lot of work, including also with batteries, because of all these EV stuff. A lot of batteries are also very polluting to build. A lot of them. But there's a lot of really clever engineers that are tackling that. It's like, okay, well, we can make it one that is not using these materials. I even saw one where it was using like basic organic material to generate, and it would be completely regenerative battery. Solar panels is a bit the same. There's this whole industry, and there's this pushback, the environmental pushback about, well, these are polluting. So you have a bunch of engineers that are working, because it's the competitive space, right? It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of concern about environment. If we can create one that is environmentally sound to build, then we're going to sell more. It's all driven by the economy nowadays, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so they have some examples out there that are like flexible panels with not as efficient. You're talking about 21.6% efficiency. Flexible panels made out of organic material that is non-polluting. So it's not the majority of the panels out there, but the technology is out there where it can, and we're moving towards that out of pressure. I have a lot of confidence in the iterative nature of scientific process, despite the fact, like we alluded to, I think even before we started recording, sometimes we make boo-boos and we run a little bit before we should walk before we run sometimes. Agreed. But the iteration and kind of the mistakes is part of that advancement that we do. And we're moving into a good place right now. I feel I'm very confident that humanity, despite its numerous mistakes in the past and the current mistakes they're currently doing now, will get to that better place. And you mentioned utopia from I think the Venusians that went to Alpha Centauri. I forget the names and all that stuff, but I think that's a goal. Like utopia is a nice goal to have. We won't get to that.
Well, maybe we will, but not in our lifetime.
It'll be a while. Yeah. Or technology can be done really quick and established and deployment, but it's the mindset that takes a while. It usually takes generations.
And utopia, like freedom, is a mindset. You can live in utopia right now. Inside the systems that we have, you can still live in utopia because, it's a mindset, isn't it? Freedom is an inside job. Happiness is an inside job. It's all an inside job. I met a man in a conference in 95 who had lived in a prison cell for 7 years that was about the size of a coffin. He could sit up in it, but he ate and defecated in the same space. And he lived in nirvana. He lived in utopia because he had the capacity to find, touch his soul, to return to source and live in bliss regardless of his circumstances. So I think that's a very important lesson for humanity too, to start appreciating the now instead of looking to a future to be happy. Happiness happens in this moment, and the happy inspires the great ideas, right? Like you know yourself, Sylvain, when you're happy and excited, how the ideas just like come, and when you're depressed and sad, it's like you feel blocked. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm fortunate enough to have learned that lesson in my, I would say my mid-30s. I'm 46 now, going on 47 soon. And I can pack everything I own in a car by choice. Like this is how I live, because to your point, what I learned is that happiness is something I decide upon. And my circumstances, all is these things I can surround myself with. Yeah, they can be distracting, they can be fun, they can be all sorts of things, but they don't define how I feel, and they don't define who I am.
Yeah.
And so most of the time, I see no value in acquiring things, because why would I? I mean, I don't find a reason for it. But that's my path and my journey, and I don't live in a space the size of a coffin. I live in a slightly bigger space, but my space is very limited, but because I don't feel like I need more than that. And if I take more than what I need, if I do the very quick math, that's kind of like taking away from somebody else, or space, or whatever it is. I mean, of course, I'm not intentionally like taking something, but I have to take care of that extra space, and that extra space is actually somebody else's space in some way.
Yeah, but that's a
space is shared.
Yeah, limiting mindset, like to think, I don't know, if I'm healthy, maybe if I'm too healthy, I might be taking health from somebody else. So maybe I should get sick so somebody else can have health. It's just,
yeah, don't think that, but
it's the same with, it's feeling like there is finite resources. There's not enough air to breathe. There's not enough space. I've got to say, go to India, that mindset, I was thinking about this morning, the different mindsets and the different, okay, so why I was thinking about this morning, I was thinking about your embassy, right? And I was thinking about the ETs live in a different vibratory mindset, and so a different vibratory experience. And we create our vibratory experience through our mindset. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking of my experience in India. It was an overwhelming feeling of not enoughness, not enough time, not enough space, not enough money. I was in an ashram in India, where we would kind of go into this massive hall to see the guru, and all the Indians were running to get right up the front, and they're all squashed up against each other, like they were breathing in your ears, like your nose was touching the back of somebody's head, in this massive hall with like meters and meters of space behind them. And the mindset was, there's not enough space, I've got to squish this, just this not enough was this huge mindset that I felt in India. And I remember the next day we went to see the guru. I thought, I'm not going to buy into this mindset. Because they were all running into the hall, like there's not enough time, we've got to get in quickly. And I strolled into the hall as all these people were running past me, and I sat stretched out. And there was this big, like, room around me while everyone was squashed up against each other. I sat there stretched out because I thought, I'm going to shift my mindset from this not enough. And yeah, so anyway, back to the eat. So would we need to cultivate a different frequency in order for extraterrestrials who vibrate in a different mindset to be comfortable in our environment? This is what I was thinking this morning. If we create this physical space, will we have to set up the energy of the space in order to accommodate their frequency?
That's a good question. What the design of the embassy, because we have the blueprints, we prepared for it, because we're thinking about some of this too, is that there's an antechamber, and the space behind the meeting area and antechamber, that's nobody goes there. Automated services, sure, because in a way, like we don't know their entire mind, their vibration, or and we don't want to pollute that to make so that they feel comfortable being there.
Yeah.
I mean, pollution may be a bad word, but it's like an interaction of two different vibes that may not be compatible because they're so alien to each other. So there is a definite separation, so that there's a comfortable space where nobody else goes, and they're isolated there. From landing to living spaces and so on, and if they want to speak with us physically, then they have to cross this how do you call that? Like an airlock, I suppose, would be the right terminology. There's no space, but kind of an airlock thing, and then they cross over to our area. And they do that by choice. They choose to do that, and they expose themselves to our vibe. So there's some thought into that, knowing that we want to make them feel comfortable, however the environment and vibes they are in.
Have you?
But that's about as good as it gets for now.
Have you heard of Emery Smith?
Henry Smith?
Emery Smith.
No.
All right, so he was a doctor in the secret space programs, working on a lot of extraterrestrial tissue and bodies for many years. He's since retired, but he's out there speaking about it, and he's met physically many extraterrestrials in the secret space programs. And he said that you have to prepare yourself emotionally, mentally, and consciously to be in the same space with some of these extraterrestrials because of their telepathic and empathic abilities. A thought that you have, just a little thought in your head, can feel to them like you're screaming at them. Do you know what I mean? Because it's such a different way of thinking and being. And because they're so highly attuned to a different way of thinking and being. So a frustrated thought anyway, he was saying that if you're in their physical presence, you really have to consciously work on maintaining a more positive vibe, because if you get frustrated or a little bit pissed off or angry, they feel that it's like clashing cymbals to them. But anyway, he explains it, and I sort of thought about it and thought, yeah, right, okay. So to many extraterrestrials that would come physically to Earth, humans are so rooted in fear-based thinking most of the time that it could be painful for them to be in our existence because they're just not used to that vibe. They're just not used to it. Yeah. So something to think about when preparing an embassy to welcome our cosmic brothers and sisters. There's a lot of training we need to do to shift our consciousness and our thinking.
Just a thought is like, we're thinking about like you and I basically going there and meeting them, and I'd like to think that we'd be somewhat ready for that encounter because we've been in that mindset for such a long time. And probably, I don't know if you practice meditation, other practice where you discipline your mind a bit and things like that. But the idea, at least in this case, is for them to meet our national leaders, politicians.
Yeah.
Not the same thing. So I'm thinking of like, wow, they're gonna have headaches because like the mentality is not the same. They would be jockeying for position, for favors probably, and like the double talk in their minds and all, and the ETs are going to be savvy to it all, because they have ways to really detect all that deception completely, I'm sure. But I'm sure they'll be nice and polite.
Well, you've heard
having chosen to be there.
You've heard the story of the stranger at the Pentagon. You've heard that story by Dr. Frank Strangers. So it's about an ET from again Venus called Valiant Thor, who lived at the embassy during the 50s. Was it the 50s? For a period of months, talking to the heads of state, trying to impart knowledge from higher civilization to our leaders, falling on deaf ears again. And so he was an extraterrestrial that lived amongst politicians. You'll have to ask him how he felt about it. But But of course, he could read everybody's mind because that's the way they communicate telepathically. And but that's what we need to do. We need to get with the program. We need to understand our psychic and telepathic abilities so that we can be in a frequency and a vibration in order to receive them.
And that's a little bit like, if I think about the Alliance, itself as an organization, yes, there's these tangible projects, right, about contact diplomacy, United Nations, all that stuff. These are jobs, tasks that we are doing to kind of achieve some of the goals, like the embassy, the building of the embassy, and so on. But underlying that, even more important than that, and this is common for everybody that is supporting the Alliance. We have a group that is a Buddhist group, essentially, as a supporting of the Alliance, and others. Scott Katamas is a Saturday Night Live as a supporter, and I've been talking to Mark Sims, Alan Steinfeld, and a bunch of others, and I just recently spoke to Kostov E.T. Let's Talk.
Yeah, he's coming on the show.
Tour.
Right.
Yeah, he's amazing stories. That was a lot of fun. So they're all coming on board in the Alliance because we all want the same thing, so we're collaborating on a fundamental level. That's great. But what we have in common beyond our interest in meeting ET is that we want to create this brave new world of thought and consciousness, right? Of a civilization that is unified under freedom and acceptance and so on. And that's really the more important piece, right? So when we have discussions, we don't talk a lot about the embassy, because that's like, the plans are there. I can share with you like a pamphlet that has like what we send to countries about the business of it, tourism, blah, blah, blah. But that's all tangible stuff. But the real work, you can call it that, is how are we opening the minds of people? How are we creating more love and harmony with each other? How are we building that? Because that's what really is going to open the door to an alien civilization. It's when they say, okay, like they're at this stage of evolution, of social engineering, if you would, or whatever, where, okay, like they're at that stage. We've been there before 1,000 years ago, whatever, right? We know what's next. Now they're ready now for that kind of first contact initiative and to really accelerate that mindset. So it's always goes back to that mindset change we were talking about. That's really the key. And mindset change means we can choose to change how we govern each other. We can choose to change how our economy works to something that works for everybody, because we certainly can. Natural resources, to your point, are abundant. They're no longer scarce. We got ways to make it it's abundant now. Everybody can eat. Everybody can have a roof. We just have an old system that decides that only the landowners basically own everything, and those that don't own anything get to starve. And we're past that, and we have to understand that we need to change our minds to change our society. Even though I'd like to think that an alien civ would be the seminal moment that allows us to make that mind shift, my impression is that we have to make the mind shift ourselves before they come. That's my sense. I can't tell you why I'm thinking this, but I think it's our job to figure our own stuff out.
Absolutely. And that's what we're all knocking ourselves out as spiritual teachers doing. We're helping people shift their focus and their consciousness and raise their vibe. And yeah, that's what we're all doing. That's what I've been doing. So we're all doing. That's why I've been doing the show for 12 years and showcasing New World teachers, as well as teaching and myself teaching and counseling and doing sessions with people. Yeah, that's what it's all about, is that shift in human consciousness. That's the Great Awakening. Mm-hmm. Sylvain, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Karen. Lovely.
Wow, what did you think of Sylvain? Interesting, fascinating man, isn't he? I love his concept. I was just having a big chat with him. I'm just looking at that photograph behind me. He's got a lake or a swimming pool in the where is it? In the shape of a UFO. I just saw that. I love this idea. I think it's gorgeous. Look at the star in the middle there, that Star of David, or the six-pointed star he's got in the middle there. Yeah, I was saying, where do you think it's going to be built? Because there's already been millions of dollars raised to build this thing, to build this structure. And he said, not in the US or Canada. I said, build it in Australia, build it in Australia. He said, it's one of the countries they're considering, but maybe a smaller country where it's less, they don't have to combat big political structures. Anyway, so we don't know where it's going to be built at this stage, but it is going to be built because the money is there to build it. Yes, I think there should be one in every country, every state. Yeah, exciting, interesting. He's got a PowerPoint that he didn't show, but of the plans of this embassy. But it's very futuristic and fabulous, and yeah, it's a brand new world, isn't it? It's a brand new world. Yeah, fascinating man. And he's going to introduce me to some people, and I'm going to introduce him to some people, and we're all going to have fun. We're going to get along. It's an amazing world. Imagine going there and meeting some extraterrestrials and learning from them, like having like lessons from them, and maybe going for a bit of a spin in their spaceships, a bit of a spin around the planet, maybe just go to Venus for the afternoon, have afternoon tea, come back for dinner. Wouldn't that be fun? Holiday on Venus. Why not? Yeah, it's a brand new world. It's exciting, very exciting world. Yeah, it's been another long conversation. As I say, Sylvain was fascinating, and he's got some amazing ideas. Although I did chat to him about speaking to his ET guides. I said he's got a whole galactic federation talking to him, and he says, I don't hear them. And I said, yeah, you're too in your logical mind. You're too curious about something. I said, if you're going to ask them questions, just like if you ask somebody else a question, you have to actually wait and listen, like listen for the answer. But when we're speaking to a nebulous nothing that we can't see with our physical senses, we usually ask questions like, oh, that'd be interesting. What does it mean by that? What does that mean? And what does that mean? And we don't give our mental capacity space to actually receive an answer. So just know that you're talking to a consciousness, and you've got to listen for the answer, just like you would listen from the answer from a human being. So I've given him that challenge, and hopefully he'll come back to me with, yeah, I'm talking to my ET guides. That'd be cool. At least he's not Jacques Vallée, who when asked, are you inspired from spirit or God or ETs, he's like, nah, don't believe in any of that crap. And he was totally inspired. Like, the Venus Project is such an amazing project. You check it out. It's all online and it's amazing. And he's so inspired by futuristic beings, by spirit. Inspired in spirit. That's what inspiration's all about. To go within and listen to spirit, to be inspired. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go have some breakfast. Actually, lunch. It's nearly lunchtime here. Thanks again for listening and watching, and let me know your thoughts. What does your future world look like? How do you envisage your future world? Do you want to work? Do you not want to work? Do you want to be on holiday, like he said? Do you think his vision of a futuristic world, or a world that we can create now, did it sound boring? Just get up and have some robot cook you breakfast and do what you like and have some lunch, robot cook you. I mean, did it sound boring to you, or did it sound like, yes, I want that? I want to know your thoughts. Personally, it sounded a little boring to me. I was like, I don't want to be on holiday 24/7. I want to do what I'm doing, actually. I want to inspire people and teach and talk to people. And yeah, I want to have a purpose in my life. I don't want to just be on holiday 24/7, although holidays are nice. Wouldn't mind one right now, actually, after being locked in. I've got a beach down the road. I can't complain. Really, I can't complain. And I do swim, even in winter. But I do fancy sitting on a deserted island somewhere and sipping, juice cocktails and just chilling out and having massages and swimming in a beautiful, pristine, turquoise, aqua blue ocean and having some water sports, maybe doing some sailing and stuff like that. Oh, that'd be nice. Maybe I'll do that this summer. Summer's coming up. I'll go up to Byron Bay and do that. Thanks again for listening and watching, and I'll speak to you soon. If you want to join our Inner Sanctum, as I said, I'm online teaching every week. And this month coming up, October, we have the beautiful Serena Faith Masterson, who has been on the show. Check out my show with Serena. It is one of the most tragic, profound stories I've ever heard. Whew. Someone who's just joined the group, I said to the group, check the show out because she's coming in. She said, when I saw the title, I didn't want to watch it. It just sounded too horrendous to listen to that story. And she said, but her heart just melted as she heard the story, and she was just relayed so sweetly and beautifully. But it's horrendous. It's horrendous, and beautiful and funny. So she's going to come and inspire us with her wisdom next month coming up. And remember to check out the book Awakened by Death if you haven't already. Love you big time. Bye for now.